Are you feeling overwhelmed by all the buzz around AI in video marketing? Well, as smart video marketers, we're always looking for new ways to grow our brand's reach, influence, and ultimately the bottom line, right? But here's the thing. While AI offers amazing possibilities for video marketing, and it's certainly something that we can't ignore as confident video strategists, the challenge with AI, I believe, is will it strip away that critical humanness and authenticity that makes video marketing so effective? Well, that's what we're going to explore in today's episode. So keep watching. Welcome back to the Engage Video Marketing Podcast. This is episode 303. And today we're jumping back into the world of AI and video marketing. And it's certainly something we've talked about a lot on this podcast over recent episodes. But today we're looking at something through a different angle that I think is really fascinating and interesting for me. And that's hopefully why you're here today as well. So my guest today is Ian Anderson Gray. Now, you may remember Ian from back in episode 67. So it was quite a number of years ago here on the Engage Video Marketing Podcast. And back in episode 67, we spoke with Ian about the power of live video. Now, Ian still talks a lot about live video and is deep in the world of live video, but he's also lately started to really embrace the power of AI and particularly staying human when it comes to using AI tools in your video marketing. So that's why I wanted to bring him back on the show here today, as I think it's going to be a really fascinating conversation. So if you haven't yet met Ian, then Ian is the founder of Confident Live Marketing Academy and Seriously Social, his blog. He's an international speaker, trainer, and consultant who makes the techno-babble of live video and social media marketing easy to understand. And yes, he's also a professional singer. There's a fun fact. So what we're going to get into today is how to embrace AI positively in your video marketing, not to be scared and steer away from it, but instead how to do so without losing the human touch. So grab a notebook and pen. You're going to want to take notes for this one, I guarantee. Let's dive in and say g'day to the ever-inspiring Ian Anderson Gray. Ian Anderson Gray, welcome back to the Engage Video Marketing Podcast.
Thanks, Ben. It's great to be back. It's been a while.
It has. Just before we hit record here, I looked up when was the last time you were on this episode. It was something like episode 67. Actually, let me just check that. I think it was episode 67 of the podcast. Yes, that's correct. Episode 67 back in October 2018. The world has changed a bit in that time.
Just a little bit.
Hasn't it?
Yeah.
So what's changed in your world, Ian? For those people, they can definitely go back and listen to episode 67, but I'd love to know, what's going on in your world? What's your focus? What side of video and marketing is really firing you up today?
Yeah, well, back in those days, I mean, live video was the big thing. And I kind of launched into live video in 2016 when Facebook Live became a big thing, kind of reluctantly at first, but then I really embraced it. And I still do that today. I'm still doing live video production for organizations and businesses. I still teach that. But live video has definitely changed. It's since the unmentionable word. It's or since after that, I think it's taken a bit of a dip. I wonder whether we're going to get a rise with the rise of AI as people actually start to seek a bit more human interaction. But we'll see about that. But now what I'm focusing a lot more on is AI in video and how we can embrace that in a positive way to help us to become more creative and human. Because there's a big discussion about how AI is going to take away our jobs and take away our creativity, and we're all going to die, apparently. There's that narrative. Or the other narrative is that AI is amazing. It's going to change our lives so much for the better. And I think I have this middle road, and that's kind of what I'm wanting to, that's what I've been focusing on. I was giving a talk at a Tube Fest, in the first ever Tube Fest in the UK last month, and that was my topic and something I'm really interested in discovering, because we're kind of in the Wild West right now when it comes to AI. So we're all kind of trying to work out the way forwards and the ethics and the morality and all that kind of stuff.
It's been really interesting and fascinating to not only dive into AI over the last year and a bit, but also to step back as a marketer and a business owner and look at how the industry and other people are reacting to AI as well, right? And I think, I'm very similar to you in that, I think that there is massive possibility here, but there's also some potential downsides and some drawbacks, right? So navigating AI in the right way, I think, is something that we all need to be thinking about and working out together as a collective, right? So I'm really interested to dive into that topic with you here today. But can you take me back to when you first kind of discovered? It's probably Chat GPT, all right? I would assume, or AI tools in the way that we see generative AI today. What was that initial reaction for you?
Well, I mean, we can actually go back before that ChatGPT. There were tools like I think it was initially called Jarvis and then became Jasper. And I
Yeah, that's
wasn't
right.
I knew people that you were using them, and I dabbled in it, but it just didn't excite me because you had to work really hard, and the output just wasn't that great, and it felt really kind of, I don't know, it just lacked that humanity, so I wasn't excited at all about it. And at the time, it was also there's a lot of excitement about Web3. Again, that didn't really excite me, and so the reason I mention all of that is that when ChatGPT came about, um, we suddenly found this tool that was easy to interact with. It's called ChatGPT because it's like a chat bot that you can interact with. You don't have to. It's not like a command line prompt. You don't have to kind of work it out from that point of view. So easy to use, and actually the output was staggeringly good. And so I just jumped in straight away, and I could see how this could be used in my business and for other businesses right now. And that I compare that with the likes of Web3, which I'm not knocking it as a concept. Lots of potentially exciting things that you can do with it, but not necessarily for most businesses, not right now. And again, the same with like Jarvis or whatever it was called, Jasper. Yes, I know you could use it, but it just took a lot of work. And so that's what excited me about it. And my goodness, like since then, so many developments have happened, so many other tools. Yes, there's ChatGPT, but there was a plethora of different other AI tools out there. And I think it's also important to say, like, these tools, these AI tools, this is nothing new. We've had AI for decades, really. It's just that now what ChatGPT did is leading the way in terms of making it easy, kind of what's the word? Commoditizing it, making it easy, but also focusing on the human aspects of it as well. And that's what really excited me.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the term is democratizing.
That's the
right?
word. That's the word.
Because
Yeah.
I often talk about, and I often use that term democratizing when we talk about like what the smartphone did for content creation and video creation. Is it brought it into the hands of everyone and made it accessible and easy to do, right? Which for us as video producers meant that we no longer had value or as much value in our kind of $10,000 video cameras on our shoulders, those big old video cameras, because everyone could do it. They had a video camera in their pocket. And now with ChatGPT, it is literally the frontier of people being able to tap into this large language models, this power of AI just by chatting to a thing.
Yeah. It's so I think that's true, but I do want to say, so some people at this point start to worry about their jobs. Like if you're a copywriter right now, if you are a designer, and if you are a video producer, I mean, we're starting to see like AI generated videos. I mean, yes, AI is only going to get better, but I, at the moment at least, see that AI is fantastic at helping us generate ideas. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're sacking your copywriter. Like I'm in the process of making a pivot and restructuring my business. So I've been thinking a lot about who my audience is, who are my clients, all these things. I've launched another podcast, and AI has really helped me brainstorm ideas, all the cluttered ideas that we all tend to have as entrepreneurs, flying around in our heads, and actually putting structure to that. And then I can then go to a copywriter, here is some copy that AI has created, or the structure of the copy. I've got the idea. Can you make that better? Can you make it more human? Can you make it more like me? Same with like design for a podcast. I got AI to come up with artwork for that. It was pretty good. It was 90% there. But again, I went to my designer and I said, can you make that into the artwork? So it helped me. I'm not always very good at explaining to my designers or my copywriters like what it is that I want, but it helped me get to the point where I could explain it to them. So yeah, I mean, maybe we'll get to a point when we can sack our copywriters and designers. I don't think so, and I wouldn't want to. I think it helps in the process.
Well, here's the thing, right? And I think the challenge with AI is that because it's effectively a technology that's crafted or designed around a collective knowledge, right? Unless it's a very specifically trained model like Chat GPT or something like that, which means that it, by default, by very definition, is going to, without a lot of tweaking, lose that authenticity, that personality, that humanity behind humans, right? So, I believe that there is a way, and there probably will continue to be a way to train humanity into a model, but it's never going to be human, right? So, how do you think that idea of authenticity and humanity plays into people embracing AI technology and not being afraid of it?
Oh wow, that's a really interesting question. I was having my haircut yesterday, and I always have the best deep conversations with my hairdresser. It's great, and she was like, her view was like she was really scared about AI because she was thinking her view was it's taking away our humanity. We were talking about the relationships we have with other human beings, and there are. As with all things, with the birth of the internet, it wasn't long before the bad guys came in and started creating some dodgy stuff. And it's the same with AI. There are AI girlfriends. So like, where you can just interact. And you don't have to have relationships anymore, which is like, I found that really scary and freaky. So yeah, I mean, I think it's important to understand what AI is. And we're talking a lot about LLMs, which are these large language models. They're not the AI that we think it is. It's not what's called artificial general intelligence when it knows things. I mean, we talk about, Google knows things or ChatGPT knows things. It doesn't know anything. It's just a data set. It's putting in the most likely next words in the prompts. So when it comes to creativity, it's going to be creative in the sense that it's going to put it's all to do with statistics and what's going to be the next thing. So I don't think it's going to take away our creativity. It can't think in the way that we do. This is what we call narrow AI. It's not artificial general intelligence. Once it's finished responding to you, it's not thinking. That's it. Until you interact with it again, it's not thinking. And so I think we need to remember that. We've obviously seen probably quite a few sci-fi movies, like, in 2001 when HAL doesn't want to be switched off. We're not there yet. Maybe we'll never. According to Elon Musk, we're going to get AGI next year. I don't think so. So I think it's important to think about that. It's a tool. But it is very much narrow AI, and it's not. We can use it. This is my big thing. We can use it to help us do the things that we're really good at as human beings. We can help it to make us more creative, to help us to become more creative, to be more authentic. Or we can just, I can't be bothered writing a blog post this week. I'm just going to put a big prompt in there to write a blog post, automate it, and then bung it up on my blog. And yeah, that's kind of lazy, and that is taking away our humanity and our creativity. But that does not mean that we can't. I think we can still use AI in the process to help us with the stuff that we do best as humans.
Yeah, I agree, and I think like any tool, let's think of a hammer, for example, as a
Mm.
tool. Is you can use it to use it in a precision way to drive in a nail to achieve an outcome, right? To build a house, right? It can achieve great things. It's a great tool that helps us humans. But you can also use a hammer and swing it around and smash windows and dent cars without meaning it, right? If you use it in
Mm.
the wrong way. Or it can, just kind of smash a hole in a wall. You don't want it. So
Yeah.
I don't know where that analogy is going, but I'm thinking like with AI as well, I think people sometimes just kind of pick up the tool without really learning how to use it, without really thinking
Yeah.
about how to use it in a precision and targeted way to get the outcome that they want, rather than just thinking this tool is like magic and I'm just going to swing it and see what happens.
Yeah, and my big kind of motto with all of this is just because you can doesn't mean you should, And so, like I see, and we are living in the Wild West. There's a lot of things that you can do at the moment that aren't necessarily good. I think we need to ask those questions. And I get it. At the moment, we're just all playing with this stuff, and sometimes like we're doing things that are a bit ridiculous. So like I know somebody who completely automates their podcast. They don't even choose the news stories. AI chooses the news, creates the podcast script, sends it over to 11 Labs. He's got a cloned voice, so it's him speaking, and then it automates publishing it every day. So you get that type of thing. Is that a good thing? I'm not saying it is or it isn't. It's just interesting. You can clone you physically. So you've got videos of you cloned. You can have lots of avatars of you can automate all of that. You can clone your voice. You can translate your voice into a different language, and this is like HeyGen, I think, does this. It even changes your lips. You can, with Descript, you can change the direction of your eyes. So if your guest is looking at the screen and not at the camera, you can actually move their eyes contact towards the camera. So like I think at the moment these are all really fun and cool things, but we just need to be asking the question, like, what's the ethical stance with these things? And my view with most of these things, I think most of these things are absolutely fine as long as you're really open and transparent about it. Like if it's an automated podcast, if it's a cloned voice of you, great. But say that it is, if it's a cloned version of you, again, say that it is. If it's a completely automated blog post, again, I think just that's what people need. They want to be able to trust you. They want to, that integrity is really important in this whole thing, I think.
Yeah. Well, let's bring it down into a practical sense of how AI is potentially impacting on video marketing for business. Let's think about that business owner out there who knows they should be doing video content more consistently, to grow their business. And they look at AI as a shortcut. This is something I've seen time and time again. It's like whether they are just turning to ChatGPT or AI tools to generate script, you're just using those scripts as is without further development. Or if they're using, completely AI generated video tools that mean that they don't even need to show up in their videos either as an AI avatar, or, some of these tools you can just give it a topic and it just spits out a video with some stock video and text over the top. And, I feel it's just adding to the noise, right? So what would you say to that that business owner who's thinking this is like a godsend to video marketing? It's going to make it easy for me and I'll never have to do stuff again, but I'll just be crushing and dominating on my video strategy. What would you say to that person?
Well, yeah, I don't want to kind of like be too negative. So we can use AI in the process. So I use AI very much in my whole video content process. It's very much part of it, but it's only part of it. So, and I think I will also say we need to distinguish between the different types of content that we produce. So, for example, my podcast show notes, I would call that functional content. So does it matter if that's fully AI generated or the transcript, if that's fully AI generated? I would say probably not. I think like people, what they want there is they just want to kind of get the information. They want to know like vaguely what's in the podcast. They want to know the main parts, like the chapters. I don't think most people care whether that's AI. Again, I would still say this is AI generated. But when it comes to like a blog post or the script of your videos, that type of content, I think if that's totally AI generated, then that completely removes the human. Well, almost removes the human. You might be reading the script, but you may as well be using an AI avatar, really. So I think you can use AI, I think, to streamline your process, to cut. I don't like using the phrase cut corners, but you can optimize things. But when it comes to actually turning up in front of the camera, I do think it should be you most of the time. There are definitely use cases for using AI avatars. I just personally agree with you. I think that can add to the noise. I'm more interested in genuine human connections. I suppose, just thinking off the top of my head, the only time when AI avatars would be maybe useful is, again, back to that functional content. If you've, for example, got thousands of FAQs on your website and you're wanting to convert those into just some video to help people just get information quickly, you could use it in that context. I still think it would be better if it was a human, but people probably don't mind so much. So yeah, I would use AI to, for example, to brainstorm ideas, to maybe optimize your script. So you've already created the script and then you're kind of getting ideas on how you can make that better. You can use it in the video editing process. So I use a tool like Descript to transcribe it. And then to find maybe the best bits to then split it up. You could use a tool like Opus Clips. I think in all those different things. So it's helping in the planning stage. It's helping in the repurposing stage as well. I think in those bits, it can really speed things up and help you produce a lot more content. That's helpful. So that's how I would use it and how I would not use it.
I love that distinction between functional content and, I guess, more personal content. You know, that idea that there is a role for video content that is more functional, just like written content, just like, you know, other forms of content online. But when it comes to your video strategy, there are certain parts that are more functional. And there are also certain types of production that are less personal as well. You know, for example, explainer video type content as well. You know, I mean, I think everyone's seen those bad animated explainers that are created with, you know, those cheap kind of animation tools and things like that. Like, they've been around for a while, and that's not AI, of course, but you know, there's still going to be bad versions of content and good versions of content. But for example, you know, just to support the use of AI in some cases is, we've just, in my production company, we've just done a whole series of medical videos, which was real people that we filmed, but it needed to be voiced by voiceover talent, you know, but there was like over 2 hours of voice script to record, right? And typically we would go to a voice agency, pick a nice voice that was just a random third-party voice. You know, it's just professional voice talent. And, you know, with a trustworthy tone and someone nice timbre to their voice. Timbre, is that how you say it? Timbre?
Timbre.
You would know. Timbre. Thank you. But you know what I mean? That tone to their voice. And, but yeah, I mean, we did get a quote from our voiceover talent agency that we use, and a couple of $1,000. Cool. That's normally what we'd pay. But then we started experimenting with 11 labs, and the client was blown away, and they were like, why can't we just use this? And I was like, well, okay, why can't we? And it's actually, you know, the technology is there. So that kind of thing, it didn't need to be a real human doing that. It just needed to deliver it in a way that didn't take away from the training that was being delivered. So, you know, well, what do you feel about that use? I mean, obviously it's going to, you know, potentially cause problems with professional voice talent.
No,
you know, they might feel that risk.
I was just going to say, hopefully there aren't any professional voice actors listening to this podcast, because
sorry about that.
But yeah, no, it is. Yeah, So yeah, I think that's very much a legitimate use of it. And 11 Labs is so good now that I think it is worth considering. The thing you've got to be careful with, and I'm sure you tested all of this, is that sometimes it can't cope with words. It will mispronounce words. So like,
well, definitely in medical terms that for this training that we had. And, we got around that just a little bit off. Well, there is no script, but, we're just having a chat here, Ian. But how we got around that was we used the 11 Labs voice-to-voice feature, which was basically where I recorded my voice pronouncing the sentence, the challenging sentence with the correct pronunciation of the medical term. And then it just turned it into that same voice talent that we used for the rest of the script. And it does that amazingly well.
I haven't used
it just
that.
transforms my voice.
Yeah. Well,
it's crazy.
That would have meant you kind of having to work out how to pronounce all these medical terms, but I'm sure that was part of the
fun. I had to do that too. But anyway, now I know how to pronounce asystole and oropharyngeal
I'm
and
impressed.
things like that.
Very, very good.
Anyway,
deoxyribose nucleic acid is the only big long word I learned. But yeah, I think it's
well done.
I think it's like, I don't know how I feel about this because, like, I come from a musical background, so I was a professional singer, and like the idea of AI completely taking away the jobs of musicians. I mean, it's already difficult enough to make a living if you're a creative, like a musician or an actor. So this is yet another thing to have to deal with. But again, I don't think it will completely take away the need for working with musicians and voiceover actors. But I think in that situation, that's more, coming back to what we were talking about before, that's kind of more functional content. There's going to be times when actually having a real person behind it is going to be really important for your brand, for the emotion that you put into it. Yes, I know that, the emotion side of things is only going to get more and more real with AI. We saw that with the ChatGPT, what was it? Their kind of big launch a few months ago when they were
the
demonstration,
ChatGPT 4.0 or whatever it's called.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, this is what we live in the Wild West at the moment, and there's all those questions. We're going to feel a little bit uncomfortable with some things. Some of us will, some of us won't. And we've just got to make those decisions over the time. This is all new territory, and so we're all going to have different rights and wrongs. I think we're all going to have. Some of us are going to be absolutely disgusted by you using AI, like 11 Labs for that, and some people are going to say that's amazing, and some people are going to think it's fine. Why not? So we just got to work it out at the moment. We're in that stage when we're just finding our way.
I think what it comes down to as well, Ian, is authenticity. And authenticity, just by the nature and definition, can't be faked, right? Or can't be pretended. And I think when you are approaching the use of AI to supplement and support our video marketing strategy or our video creation, we need to do that in an authentic way.
Yeah.
Both, bringing that authenticity into what we're creating with those, which means usually not just taking the output that comes from these tools and just posting it as is. We need to, run it back through the human filters of how can we rewrite this in my voice or my style or with my angle on it. Or, just being authentic when we are using AI and, being upfront about it and being visible about the fact that this is a fully AI generated podcast, for example. Well, this isn't, but the one you were talking about before. If it's up front and people are listening to it and they know that it's fully AI and they're cool with it, fine. That's authentic, right?
Yeah, totally agree. And I think authenticity is that real human connection is so important for a lot of content, not so much for the functional content that, if you just wanted to find out something, then you go to ChatGPT. You don't really care that it's a human. But for this, for one of the reasons I think people love this podcast is because we're human beings. I've stumbled over my words a few times today, and I probably said, I don't know, probably made mistakes as well. And that human interaction, we're hardwired, I think, to connect with other humans. And the imperfections that I have is hopefully what kind of attracts people to me and to you. And it's interesting, like the voice app, the voice interaction part of the ChatGPT app on my phone. Don't know if you've used that much. I use it all the time just to brainstorm ideas. It's really interesting in the response. It actually puts and ums into the response. It's really weird. It will say, yeah. So so the answer to that is, and it's obviously been programmed in, and it does really sound quite human. So I think the AI developers, they know this, that as human beings, we don't trust when things are too perfect. So I just said then. I'm going to say even more as I keep talking about this, but you know what I mean? So I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. Descript can automatically remove all the ums and ahs using AI, right? So I don't use that feature. So those ums are going to stay in. But it is interesting. Even 11 Labs and ChatGPT's voice response as well, they even add like breaths in there so that you can hear the breathing in between. So it sounds real. And so I think that the takeaway here, and I'll come to you for your kind of closing thoughts for people who are listening and thinking about fearing AI or embracing AI, because that's kind of where we're at, I think, with this. But the thing is I think what we need to do is react and respond to the AI that is surrounding us and that is available to us today, and not worry too much about what's coming down the pipeline, because we really don't know, I think. That is kind of out of our control in a way, unless, someone listening to this is, high up in OpenAI or something like that, and, is controlling some of what they're developing there. But, I think as marketers, as business owners, what we need to do is just think, how can we authentically embrace and use these tools to stay ahead of, what we need to stay ahead of in our business today, but to do it authentically, to maintain that humanity and still recognize that people, people want to connect with and do business with other people, not with AI versions of those people. So that's my soapbox. I'm going to hand over to you. And what's the kind of final things that you would want to say to someone listening and thinking about AI and humanity and marketing today?
Well, I mean, you've got to ask the big question, like, what is it that you're wanting to do with your video? Don't just start with the technical side of things. You've got to think about what it is you're wanting to achieve, and then use AI in the process to help you to become more human, more creative. And one of the big things with that, I think, is we all need to be better at constructing prompts. You can become now a prompt engineer. That is actually a thing. And using all the not all the different models. There are like so many, but it keeps changing. Like ChatGPT 4.0 was supposedly the most intelligent and clever. Now it's Claude Sonnet 2.5. Next week, it'll be something else. It'll change. But I think it's important to keep on working out how to construct the best prompt for all those different LLMs. Because what you put in, the quality that you put in is the quality you get out. And most people are just putting something very simple in. So if you want ChatGPT or Claude to give you help with your with ideas for your podcast or your video, if you want it to understand more about you, you need to tell it a lot about you. You need to give it examples of previous podcast episodes or video scripts. Give it all of that information as much as possible. Tell it what you don't want. Avoid certain words. AI LLMs, they tend to kind of overuse words like hit the ground running and level up and all these kind of phrases. So work hard at all of that. But ultimately, I think you need to then go in and make it more you at the end. Don't just use what it gives you. Use it in the process. But you can help it to do things like, create your newsletters. And by that, I mean, not just come up with the ideas. So sometimes it's better to have something on the page. This is definitely me. I always struggle with my newsletter. ChatGPT comes up with some ideas, and then I can tweak that and make it into something. Sometimes I will completely rewrite it, but it helps me in the process. So yes, prompting, just experiment at the moment, because if you do that, you're going to be way ahead of most people out there at the moment who are not using it. So yeah, get started.
Yeah. And I'd add to that, get started. Also, get some training, like learn how to use AI tools better. Follow some AI blogs or follow some people who are leading the way in this area. And, I think you've got some resources as well that you put together, some things that you've done around AI there, or what are some ways that people can maybe learn a bit more from you, Ian, about whether it be just live video. I know you've got a lot of stuff about that historically and what you're focusing on today. So
yeah,
where can people go to maybe learn a bit more from you?
So, I still got I'm still doing my Confident Live marketing podcast. At the moment, we're focusing on studio builds and also on confidence, but sprinkled around in of that, I've been sharing a lot of my thoughts on AI and how to use that. So, like top AI tools, how to use AI. I'm focusing a lot more on that. Whether I pivot towards AI with the podcast or whether I release another one, I haven't quite decided yet. We'll see. But certainly the Confident Live Marketing Podcast, and you can find that out at iag.me/podcast.
Excellent. Cool. Ian, this has been fun. It's really just, and the way I wanted to approach this conversation was just a conversation about something that I think interests us both, and I hope interests the listener or watcher of this episode as well. So if you have anything sparked interest, if you're listening or watching, I'd love you to just leave a comment below if you're watching on YouTube, or shoot me an email, podcast@engagevideomarketing.com, with your thoughts, or drop a comment on whatever social channel we're connected on, and tag Ian as well. So Ian, what's your best social channel to tag you
I'm on most of them.
I don't reach out.
I don't really do TikTok, but I'm on most of them. So just find me on X, Twitter, whatever you call it, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'll be
right, and we'll have the links in the show notes for this episode as well, which our show notes are mostly written by AI. So just be fully upfront about that. It says it on the show notes page as well that this has been written by AI. But there you go, Ian. This has been fun. Let's see where AI takes us, and let's try and ride the wave and stay ahead of the curve.
Definitely.
Well, there you go. I hope you enjoyed that episode, and having Ian Anderson-Gray back on the podcast. So quite a few hundred episodes in between this one and last time we had him on the show, so maybe we shouldn't leave it as long next time. If you want links to everything that we talked about and links to where to find more information from Ian, you can go to the show notes page at engagevideomarketing.com/303. And remember, this podcast doesn't exist without the feedback that I get from you guys. So if there's an episode or a topic that you want me to dive into in this podcast, please let me know. Leave a comment below if you're watching on YouTube, or email podcast@engagevideomarketing.com. I'm Ben Amos from Engage Video Marketing, and it's my role to help you build confidence as a video strategist. Let's do it, and I'll see you in the next episode.